everybody, and welcome back to the latest edition of Moons and Mythos. This is show number 7, and as always, my name is Davyd Farrell, your co-host, and I'm also going to be talking with my other co-host, Kelley Hunter, today. Hi, Kelley, how are you doing?
Good, really good, yeah.
So, we were just talking before we jumped onto the call right now about how this moon cycle and the next moon cycle could possibly be some of the most important that any of us have ever experienced. Now, I feel like I might have said that almost every month for the last 12 months, but every month feels like it's the most important month I've ever lived. And, we're going to be looking at a new moon in Pisces and a full moon in Virgo, which is going to be really the energy of the next 4 weeks or so, leading up to what is going to be, I think, another powerful equinox, another Aries equinox or a spring equinox here in the Northern Hemisphere, or autumn in the Southern Hemisphere. So, look, we've got a lot to talk about today, Kelley. There are lots of big themes. I know many astrologers are talking about Saturn moving into Pisces and also Jupiter having just moved into Aries. But Jupiter is going to be going into a powerful conjunction with Chiron, which I feel like I'm already starting to feel, to be honest. But look, where do you want to start? What's the major crux of the beginning of today's show? Where would you like to go with this?
Well, we've got the new moon, so we can start there on the 20th, and the full moon on March 7th, which is the day Saturn goes into Pisces. So, this moon cycle is very powerful in that regard, but it's got other really interesting nuances as well. We are new moon in Pisces, we have Neptune there. So that having an outer planet in the sign, and the moon's going to be, kind of visiting that along the way here. That's a kind of big moment. And like you said, the Jupiter Chiron is happening during this moon cycle. So that is like a very interesting kind of punctuation point. Yeah.
Right. So as always in Moons and Mythos, we like to take an astrological pulse on what's going on, but we infuse it with more of the Kuiper Belt objects. And also I like to bring in a bit of the plant medicine and some of the more esoteric shamanic stuff. And so we're going to weave our way through the next few weeks of astrological, possibly mayhem, possibly life-defining moments. We don't know. The world is a little bit crazy right now. And I think the most important thing to make sure is that you've got a big bucket of popcorn for the show, because it's quite a big show with lots of stage pieces going on. So without wanting to get too much into the conspiracy world, if there is such a thing anymore, in fact, somebody was joking, are there any conspiracy theories left anymore? Because all of the theories have become true. So we're running out of conspiracy theorists. Kelley, what do you reckon about that?
Well, there's a Neptune. I think there is a lot of, it's going to get messy, right? And it's going to be like a little mind-blowing for a lot of people, everybody probably in some ways, because, that's part of this moon cycle too. There's a whole square dance. Mars is still in Gemini. So it's going to square a lot of the stuff in Pisces. And I feel like we're kind of, what do you say when you're pushing off into, on a voyage, and it's going to be a little choppy along the way. But we also have some clear light, kind of guiding us.
Well, as always, it seems to be, and from what I've seen over the last couple of years, whenever we've got the really challenging astrology, there's also the higher notes, and particularly when we bring in the KBOs, we can see in the astrology those higher notes, but we can feel them too. And we have just gone through, as I was saying to you before we jumped on, what I felt was a very powerful conjunction with Mercury and Pluto at the 29th degree of Capricorn. And I feel that this kind of wrecking ball effect that Pluto's going to have with its backwards and forwards motion in and out of Aquarius into Capricorn over the next year or so, I feel like, with Mercury, it's like, let's get everything out there. Let's start to talk about the top-down hierarchy of Capricorn and Pluto, and also like starting to really give the disclosures full exposure. And I think as quite a few astrologers have talked about, with Pisces being about illusion, delusion, I think the breaking down of the illusions of the last, we could even say last 2,000 years, maybe. So this is big stuff. None of the astrology that's going on at the moment is kind of small, right? There's so many big chimes going on, and that one with Pluto in the 29th degree of Capricorn, I think, is going to go on till May, right? May the 5th or May the 7th or something. Is that correct? and then it actually shifts into Aquarius? Or when does Pluto move into Aquarius, Kelley?
March 23rd.
March 23rd, and then I think it goes back into Capricorn in May.
Oh, yes. Yeah. But you know, Mercury on this new moon is squaring Uranus. So following up on its conjunct Pluto, this Mercury, you know, a few days, you know, after the new moon squares Uranus. So that's going to be a wake up call, and that should play into the news cycle and people waking up, like light bulbs going on, and so important to stay grounded. So important. So that's a really, you know, strong. We need the earth. We need, you know, our bodies to be grounded and really take care of that, because Pisces is one of the most, you know, non-physical signs, you know, with its energy. And again, you know, we have the new moon at the very beginning of the sign, and it's a really strong, you know, flavor here. So that's been very interesting with this continual feeling of newness. And we have Neptune Venus conjunction, which was strong just a few days ago before the new moon. But Venus is at the last, you know, the last degree of Pisces, and she's lovely there. But minutes, I mean, pretty much minutes after the new moon, she goes into Aries, and that is such a you know, so the Aries point, it's also the equinox point in March. And there's so much energy around that 0 Aries point. It's pretty remarkable. And we find Manwe there, the archangel from Tolkien's creation story, that's been circling that Aries point for a while now. And that Aries point is so like spot on. And it's got one of my favorite Sabian symbols to go with it to amplify the storyline. And that Sabian symbol is a woman rising from the sea, embraced by a seal. That's such an evocative image that has a real Pisces flavor right there. But it's that, you know, the moment when you rise from the sea, dripping with the water, and you're in Aries, and there's a clarified moment of coming out of the sea, and a kind of sparkle, a kind of like a flash of energy where you're like, okay, I'm out of the water now. But we are going to feel that a lot. We're going to have that very image repeat and repeat and repeat, even in the next new moon cycle. The new moon is at 0 plus Aries next month. It's like hours after the equinox. So we're moving on this sea voyage right now to get to that point, continual point of like this flash, this clarification.
Right. Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's so much of the energy right now feels about new beginnings. And I know we've talked about this in previous shows, and we keep finding these nuance points. It's like, make your new moon prayers really solid, because they all matter. And I think increasingly what we're seeing and feeling is that every single thought that you have is important. Every single word that you say is important. Every action you do is important. And, you know, at the risk of sounding like a stuck record, this is the teachings of Dandelion. It just keeps coming back over and over and over again. It's, where are you at right now? Are you here?
It's the Dandelion moon. Yeah, for sure. You know, with all the Aries activity. And it's also, like you were saying, you know, in terms of our thoughts, being really vigilant. To me, the most important thing is to stay positive minded. You know, which is really hard to do. It's so easy to drop down and drop off, you know. So we've got to keep that, you know, that re-arising from the sea, you know, that clarification and that light. You know, there's a lot of light bringers and wisdom keepers, you know, in this moon cycle. But the Venus, like right on the cusp, changing sign, like right on the new moon, is really special to me. And, you know, even that image, a woman rising from the sea, you know, this is about the awakening, the reawakening of the feminine consciousness, and how important that is also to lead with our hearts, not our heads. And that's probably also one of the most important themes of this moon cycle.
Right. Yeah. So As always, at the moment, with all of these new moons at 1 degree and full moons at 16 degrees, it feels like we've been given this series of new initiations or possibilities to not only to start something, but also to just review. And I feel, personally speaking, that the Mercury-Pluto conjunction was a little frustrating. It's like, I want to get ahead. I've got lots of ideas. I'm feeling really creative. And then Pluto's going, yeah, but is it really going to work? Like, let's just have a look at this in more detail. And it's like, did you look at this? It's like, oh, yeah, that bit's not going to quite work. So let me come back, review my plans. And for someone like me, who's very energy focused and very out, you know, it's difficult to have to keep going back because I think, oh, but I have to change this bit, I have to change that bit. But, you know, also at the same time, I feel like this is important because we're being urged to review all of the new Earth plans, new Earth visions, new Earth prayers that we're making to make sure that they're not just the same old paradigm visions being repackaged either by us or by the collective or by the system or whatever. Because, you know, if we're truly going to move into a new space, we have to make sure that we're not just carrying the old baggage of the past with us, right? And so I feel like all of these new moons are super, super important to make us think about how we initiate many different aspects of ourselves through the different aspects of the zodiac.
Yeah, being really clear with yourself. There's so much clarification called for that's led by the feminine. And, right, you know, like you're saying, that the way we're thinking, you know, with the continually changes with that, you know, the Mercury square Uranus on this new moon. But while we had that Mercury Pluto before, we also had the Neptune Venus conjunction going on. And that's also the call to lead from the heart and compassion and the spiritual wavelength that we need to be on, that we can call in, that we can engage. And this moon really brings that forward also, I feel.
Right, so let's pull up the new moon chart actually, Kelly. Let's have a look at it on paper so that we can start to get it clear. Okay. Good work. We had a few problems on the run-in, so it's always nice when the screen sharing works first time. So good work, Kelly. So talk us through this one.
There it is. Here's that new moon at 122 Pisces, you know, really right at the beginning of the sign there, just coming out from the grand hurrah of the Sun conjunct Saturn. And it's like, we're leaving the Saturn behind now. This new moon is taking us into a new place. And in a month's time, you know, Saturn's going to be at the 1 Pisces. So this really is a journey that leads to I don't know that it leads to a firm destination yet, but it's certainly taking us into a new environment, a new part of the sea or the ocean. You know, the collective consciousness is definitely on a shift. So here we see that a lot here. And then, you know, as the moon moves on, it's going to conjunct Neptune and Venus, and eventually so is the sun. So here's, you know, and these two are beautiful. Venus is exalted in Pisces. This is like the, you know, unconditional love energy, and Neptune's been there for a while. So these frequencies and the wavelengths, there's such a soaking of compassion, you know, which we have to be careful about. And that, you know, this is like all the words I'm saying right now, I keep having Saturn in the back of my mind. You know, Saturn's like, okay, compassion and unconditional love is great, but what's happening here? Don't leak, don't waste your energy, you know, like, you know, riverbanks help the water flow more smoothly. So that's a very strong part of the Pisces. We need the earth, we need a containment. And I think eventually that Saturn in Pisces will be helpful once we get the hang of it, so to speak. But meanwhile, you know, here we are on this new moon with Venus, you know, changing like really within, you know, minutes. So, and it's going to go through this whole series of dynamics in Aries. And here we see Manwe at 0 Aries 20. I don't think it's going back into Pisces again, but I didn't check. So, but there it is, this Aries point, this like this moment that is a very powerful moment of the ending and beginning of the zodiac, of the seasonal shift, the a kind of like the woman rising from the sea. I just love that. So this is a newness. This is an invitation to work on this level that is Manwe, the Tolkien character, or I don't even know what we say about that. You know, I had a talk with a woman the other day who was really tuning into, I asked her to tune into these Tolkien Kuiper Belt objects because it was they're so different. They're not indigenous creator gods. And she was talking about, Monica was talking about the power of the story. And I thought it's because it's like it's become a living energy in a way that people recognize archetypally. This is a true story. It's a true myth. And so Manwe has that extra storyline aspect that's not, you know, kind of doesn't arise from an indigenous culture.
I think it's really interesting, you know, you just mentioned this point, because I thought about this before in relation to the other Kuiper Belt objects, but what you've just sort of said also really resonates with me, because I've often had the impression that Tolkien was actually channeling information from another time space. And certainly when I've worked with certain types of medicine, particularly the sacred fungi of Britain, I go into spaces that I can only describe as looking like Lord of the Rings. And it's not because I'm coming from that belief system, but I genuinely believe that Tolkien was able to tap into the inner architecture of the other world, and Middle Earth, Tolkien's world of Lord of the Rings, exists in the other world, the world of elves and fairies and goblins and trolls, and these beings all exist in our world, but they're just beyond our physical perceptions right now. And so I'm like, well, is it myth? Is it a story? Is it a weaving of both? Or is it a sort of a retelling of maybe how Earth was some millennia ago? And I think in the end, it doesn't matter. It's a bit like the Carlos Castaneda books. Many people have often criticized Carlos for saying that Don Juan was never a real character and he lifted from many different traditions to weave a story. Maybe, maybe not. But in the end, the story is so powerful. He sold over millions of copies of Don Juan. And actually, it resonated with many people in many, many different ways, because the story is so good, because it's coherent. And I think in the end, perhaps that's the most important aspect of Tolkien's work.
It carries a truth. It carries a, you know, a kind of truth that resonates. And that Manwe, as the head of the archangelic troop that went down to manifest the vision of the creator on earth. You know, I love that Manwe has that original vision, and that it's coming back at this Aries point is astounding to me. And I've said this before, you know, but I am just like really awestruck by this, and that it also is a kind of going back, you know, before time and space into another era, into another dimension, and that it's bringing that energy through and like reigniting it with that woman arising from the sea, embraced by a seal, which is another, you know, kind of mythic story that, you know, is about, you know, so she stayed on the earth out of love. And then she had to find her skin again and reconstitute that skin so she could be whole again and go back to her true home, which is the sea. So, you know, that's a very short form of the Selkie story, the seal woman story, that, you know, is a beautiful tale. I think it's most connected with the Celtic culture. So there's a real resonance with that story too. That's part of the work of this arising of the feminine consciousness, and how we're experiencing that, and what it's taking to reconstitute that body of consciousness that, you know, it's for men and women. We need that both wavelengths, you know, to bring creation into being. And then Venus.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I love the Sabian symbol. It's perfect. You know, Venus at the 29th degree, emerging from the sea of Pisces into that energy of Manwe. And, I'm just looking at the notes that you sent over for today's show, and you've used the expression here, Manwe remembers the original codes of Earth. And this is something that myself and Bella have been talking about this week, working with the original terraforming intelligences that came to planet Earth so that we can remember the original codes before all of the manipulations and contortions happen, because we know that time is very, very fluid. And if we can now call in the original codes for ourselves, for Mother Earth, then this is Manwe. He's giving us the opportunity to work with the original codes, but with this Venus energy rising from the sea, the rise of the feminine. And I think that now we can start to think about a new, different way of existing with these energies.
So as Venus moves along in Aries, she's going to conjunct, this is the asteroid Vesta, who's the goddess of the hearth and the home. She keeps the sacred flame burning. And I had to add her in because she's a light bringer, and she is a beautiful feminine consciousness. And Venus is, making this beautiful sweep through these planets in Aries that are gathering together in this extraordinary way. Mm-hmm. So Venus with Vesta, she's like a temple priestess. She also is like the devotion that keeps that flame burning in your own heart, in your own soul. So she's very introspective. She's very much about the inner light, the inner flame, and tending to the inner flame of self in the capital S way that adds to that woman rising from the sea and the clarification that we're seeking. So this is seeking your inner light, the inner, tending that flame and helping it to burn bright. So that's a lovely, integrity in the sign of Aries, because Aries is like centered in its self-clarity and its integrity, and you don't have a lot of wiggle room a lot. Well, we don't have a lot of wiggle room. That doesn't mean we can't be compassionate and somewhat selfless in our actions, but it's a contained in a way, but centered is the word I really like, because then if your actions are coming from there, if your words are coming from there, that's the original coding.
Well, even if you just think about what you've said, the expression being self-centered, well, I mean, we have the connotation that that's something that's not particularly nice. It's like, oh, this person's very self-centered. They're only ever putting their own agendas first. But if you were to break the sentence or the phrase into a different way of looking at it, you could say that this is a person who is centered in their self, which is a very, very different understanding, and actually something that's really important. And, we have an immersion coming up soon at QPH. We're working with Nettle, and Nettle in many ways is about the self-centered person, as is Dandelion, how to be centered in oneself. And if you're working with your inner flame, the energy of Vesta, and I think that, we've talked about this a lot recently on different podcasts and even immersions, this idea of being a sacred vessel. We are our own sacred vessel. We are our own toroidal field. And if at the center of that sacred vessel, we have our own inner sacred flame that we understand is our very essence of who we are, then it's okay to be self-centered. I want to be centered in myself so that when I step out into the world, I'm not a big watery mess, right? I'm not Pisces without the banks. I'm not all over the place, right? So I think that's really beautiful, Kelley. Yeah.
Yes, I love that too. And that's maybe the initial approach to this new moon is feeling that, yes, I am centered in my heart. My heart flame is bright, and so it's giving time to whatever fosters that in you, meditation, or kind of making a meal with, special attention, or whatever makes you happy. Simple enough, with the Venus. And it's not being selfish, it's being capital S, centered in self. So that's beautiful. And then right away, Venus is conjunct Salacia. So, we've got a nice sequence going here. She's conjunct Vesta on the 24th. On the 28th, Salacia, another light bringer, you know, the mermaid who makes the sunlight sparkle on the sea. And she shimmers, and, you know, it's so connected to the Vesta. I really, really love that. And that she has a self-honoring energy, because in her story, she wasn't going to marry Neptune unless, well, you know, she thought he might be flirting. You know, she goes, no, I'm not that kind of girl. So there's this self-honoring, which is another, you know, nice phrase to go along with this self-centered in self-honoring. Mm-hmm. And this is also the shimmering, sparkling energy. Somebody sent me a link to a song I'd never heard. It was such a Salacia song. It's by Bruce Cockburn, who I already love because he has this wonderful song called Lord of the Starfields. And this is another, I think he's Canadian. This one is called All the Diamonds in the World. And the first stanza goes, all the diamonds in this world that mean anything to me are conjured up by wind and sunlight sparkling on the sea.
Oh, wow. That's beautiful.
So that is so Salacia. And it's, you know, if we're pushing off on this sea journey, which it really feels like under this new moon, you know, here's the sunlight sparkling on the sea, kind of, you know, showing us the path forward. And even if it gets stormy, you know, we're eventually going to still have that shimmering guiding the path. And that's what Vesta and Salacia get together about. And then we have, did you want to say anything more about Salacia, Davyd?
Just very quickly, I mean, I'm looking at the sequence, and I know we're going to go to Jupiter in a minute as well, but I love this, Kelley. Again, it's just a reaffirmation of the divine feminine energies of Venus, of Vesta, of Salacia, and, you know, all of it's conjuring up the imagery of water, of new beginnings, but also of starlight, of inner starlight, one's inner starlight, inner flames. And, you know, I feel like, and, you know, as we're coming into the sequence, we can see Chiron's also in that mix too. But these series of nice feminine conjunctions, I feel, are really going to give the heart some nourishment, give the inner space some nourishment, so that when perhaps a more difficult conjunction of Jupiter Chiron comes really into the space, we're going to be a little better prepared for it maybe. But what do you think?
Yes, and we'll need to kind of come back into that, you know, our inner temple with that, you know, and kind of keep that flame burning and radiant again. You know, we don't want it to die down in the troubled, you know, waters, you know, and there can be a current that flows through the sea too, that guides us. Maybe we're being guided by the seal, or maybe by dolphins, or, you know, but there is that light that is guiding us. And then it amplifies when it gets to Jupiter and Venus. Oh my gosh, what a beautiful, beautiful combination. The two brightest star-like things in the sky, and they will be in the evening sky. We will be able to see them. The brightest diamonds in the sky, Jupiter and Venus, the amplification of love energy. And so that is just a gorgeous combination, and really nice to have that kind of guidance, because it's love, wisdom, love, Venus, wisdom, Jupiter. So this is, and this is all happening in just a few days, you know, at the beginning of March. Here we are, March 1st, in fact, Venus conjuncts Jupiter. And then on the 3rd into the 4th, it conjuncts Chiron, which, you know, if we put Venus and Chiron together, we get the feminine shaman. You know, some of the original shamans were female. So, but also I think it is like, because Chiron can be like a healing crisis.
Right.
It wants to align the spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical. And with Venus, it's highlighting the emotional, which is amplified with Jupiter. So there's a lot of emotional energy, and we need to keep it on a positive frequency, a positive wavelength. That is the healing guidance.
You know, this is probably why we've got Saturn moving into Pisces, because with all of this very emotional, watery energy, like emotions, as we say, could run high. And without that structure, the wateryness of Pisces could get too much for people. We could be looking at emotional overwhelm. I thought that it was very interesting, the energy on this year's Valentine's Day, that the astrology was kind of tough on the 14th, but the day afterwards, we had this very lovely Venus-Neptune energy. And so it kind of felt like Valentine's Day was postponed by a day, almost. Right, you know, in fact, the 15th of February was also my mine galactic birthday, so it kind of worked out well. We had a nice day here on the 15th rather than the 14th. But you know, with all of these energies and with the expansion of Jupiter and Chiron, but also Venus coming into that mix, there could be a big expansion of unresolved emotional traumas. And I would dare to suggest that maybe a lot of humanity has that. And, you know, I feel like with the sun and moon at the beginning of Pisces, but all of this energy at the end of the Pisces, it's almost like the two ends of the boat that you were talking about. So the Venus energy is nudging over into the new territory of Aries, but the back of the boat, which is Saturn, which is bringing the structure for all of that, is still in an outer sign conjunction at the big, you know, on the new moon with the sun and the moon in Pisces. So I kind of like, I love that image you said of the sea journey. I very much see a lot of the last few years as being on a Viking longboat heading off for new territories. And that new territory on this occasion is New Earth, in the same way that many great explorers of the past probably had similar ideas. And Pisces for me is all about the astrological vessel for that journey to take place over the next couple of years. And so I think it's interesting that we've got this kind of holding energy of Saturn at the back of the boat. And then at the front of the boat, we've got Venus, which is forging the way, but with love and the inner energies of Vesta and Salacia, giving us something to work with and hold us with the more watery energies of the emotional plane.
Yes, Vesta can hold quite a lot. She's like a therapist. She can hold the energy, whatever's coming up. And I also like your Viking boat, because often they have like dragon fronts, don't they? Or like kind of like dragon energy. And I think also I was thinking of the nodes, you know, the north node being the front of the boat and the south node being the back. And we have to have both, but we're leaving that Saturn behind, you know, that this is it. We're moving forward, and Saturn's, you know, going to, the tailwind is going to shift over into the water realm. And there, I think the Sabian symbol for 14 Aries, which is where we have the Chiron Venus, is a serpent coiled near a man and woman in an embrace. So this isn't just about the feminine. It's about the relationship between the masculine and feminine. And, you know, when we get into the full moon energy, Mars becomes more active. So this is, I think, significant in that way, and sounds very Kundalini to me.
Can you just say that last Sabian symbol again? Because I think it's really important. It's 14 degrees of Aries, which is where Chiron is right now, or will be.
Yes, it's a serpent is coiled, I'm going to say, around a man and woman in an embrace.
Do you think then that, you know, a large part of the wound that we're looking at is the imbalance, let's just call it that, between the masculine and feminine, and that's what needs, you know, we're not saying one way or the other, but just that balance needs to come back now, and that there needs to be this balanced embrace between the masculine and feminine energies, and maybe that is the deepest wound we have to look at with Chiron.
Yes, I mean, we've all had been infiltrated, yes, by a distorted masculine and a distorted feminine. Because how can it not be if one, you know, so we're really healing that. Oh, and this degree, certainly this Chiron Venus certainly suggests that there's an emotional healing that will allow more relational alignment,
coherence, maybe.
Coherence. I
mean, I think with the Valentine's Day we just had as well, you know, maybe being so Piscean myself and tuning in, this is going to be a big period for me with my ascendant in the middle of Pisces in my 12th house. So, you know, I was kind of the day of Valentine's Day, I felt that this must be a difficult day for many people because so many people have lost so many people over the last few years in different ways, whether it's relationships or family members. And maybe that was also part of the energy of the 14th this year, was a sort of a recognition of like how much we've all lost from our heart space, how much we've lost in that connection with other people, and how much healing actually needs to happen around that for all of us, whether it's, you know, the masculine and feminine, or even, you know, the divine masculine has become incredibly emasculated over the last few years. And even the divine feminine has become inverted with some of the more witchy energies that we've seen in the world. And so there is no pointing the fingers and saying this is more bad than that. It's like, no, there's a big collective healing, because we've all, I think, been abused really over the last couple of thousand years by the powers that be, or how we want to look at these things. And we need to come to a place of collective healing amongst ourselves. We're not going to get it given to us by our GP or by the politicians.
Individual healing, individual right. First, you know, right. And then we can be part of that. And exactly. This is, you know, this is part of that. Yeah, I'm visiting a friend. We went out to lunch on Valentine's Day, and it was right in a little section where there was a florist. That place was hopping. It was so busy in the forest. I mean, everybody was just, you know, in and out with bouquets, and it was, there they go again. Yeah, it was really fun to watch that. No, so this is that whole series of this beautiful energy, you know, kind of on this new moon. And these light bringers, that would be Vesta and Salacia, and the wisdom keepers, that would be Jupiter and Chiron. So there's a lot of beautiful energy just gathering right around that end of February into like the first days of March, leading up to the full moon. So we could turn to that if we're ready.
Yeah, just before we do, I just want to ask you a couple of other transits here that I'm spotting, Kelley. So we have a few interesting aspects here. Is Pluto is in, Mercury is in aspects, I think, to Uranus. You've already mentioned that.
Yes, that's what I've said, yeah.
And then also we have Black Moon Lilith, I see, in aspect.
Yes. Now this is.
Do you see that playing out? That seems like it could be kind of a strong Uranus and Black Moon Lilith in aspect.
That yes, and in fact, she adds more fire and self-awareness of the Leo, and an expression of self. Whoop!
Jumped
ahead. So yeah, the Black Moon really, really supports that fire energy, and Venus will be in a beautiful trine with Black Moon. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I had it. I missed that.
And also we have here in, I think this is in, where are we looking here? Between Ceres and Black Moon Lilith. Which is that symbol? I don't recognize that one, Kelley, at 14 degrees. Over here. Yeah.
Well, that's Orcus. We're going to talk about that on the full moon. I didn't put too many factors in, so I didn't mention Ceres, but she's opposite, that Aries. But anyway, yeah, we're going to get into Orcus, which is conjunct. You see it at 14.5 here, Virgo. The full moon's at 16. So, maybe it is time to fast forward.
Okay, so that was a kind of a slightly incoherent segue, but we got there in the end. So let's get to the full moon.
That wasn't me. Okay, so here's the full moon. I mean, that's an eye-catching. Come see all that beautiful Aries.
Wow.
And yeah, wow, huh? So, and again, this is based on where I live. So, don't pay attention to the houses, but so there's the moon at 1640 Virgo. Now, Virgo is an earth sign, and I'm telling you, we need earth. So I love it when we have the full moon, with the sun in Pisces and moon in Virgo, because our bodies say, hey, pay some attention over here. And it's also a sign that I think has a lot to do with, setting our priorities. What are our priorities? And so, Virgo's beautiful in terms of body not symbols, more like symptoms, or like, what is your body telling you? Revisit your body, and it's beautifully trine Uranus. That full moon is trine Uranus, like, Uranus, I'm helping you out here. We got to keep these people in their bodies, like ground. So that's I'm really glad for the Virgo full moon here. And so there it is, 16. And, there's the sun sandwiched in between Mercury, which is now in Pisces, so our whole thinking process has moved from the more logical, higher mind, in intelligence of Aquarius. And now it's, kind of coming into that tuning in, a psychic attunement, and asking us to really just feel feel what it is. Any information coming in, how does it feel? And is that how you want to feel? And can you be fluid mentally? Well, we're going to need a lot of fluidity with this, with this dynamic that is coming in here. Let's talk about the Orcus first, because it is conjunct the full moon, and Orcus just has an orbit very similar to Pluto, and it's also an underworld god. Orcus is the Etruscan god of the underworld, and is said to have to do with oath keepers, agreements, and these can go way back. There's a lot of attention lately in the healing world to agreements. There's that book, The Four Agreements. There are a lot of people doing breaking of agreements. And I think that is a very big theme lately, but also on this full moon. It's like, what's appropriate? Are some agreements holding us back or binding us in a way that is not appropriate, is not good for our health, is not good for our emotional well-being? How do we find out what promises we've made without even knowing it? Whether it's ancestral agreements, collective agreements, past life agreements. And that's a very big theme. And this is the time to kind of really discern that with that Venus gut level intelligence, wisdom in every cell of the body. That's Virgo's attunement to nature and the natural rhythms. And it's like, where are you getting out of your natural rhythms because of some other something or other? So somebody else's priorities or bindings, or, and we feel these physically, both from unhealed issues like scars of traumas from the past, unhealed ancestral issues that play out again and again and come through the body and affect the health. So, we have so much light coming in, these plasma light waves that are just like, wash these out. Let's just wash these out. And, here's the Pisces new moon, the Pisces moon cycle saying, take more baths, go in the water. Well, we need to be careful about the waters, but dive off that boat for a minute, wash yourself in the sea, and then you can literally be a woman arising from the sea or a man arising from the sea. Let your mermaid and merman out.
Right. A couple of really interesting things you just said there. And I'm going to just highlight the one you just said, first of all, working with Epsom salt baths or going for a dip in the salty sea is a very, very good way of keeping our energy fields or our terrain clean and clear. It's a bit like having an energetic spritz. When we have those salt baths, it just shakes off a lot of what we might have picked up down at the local supermarket. And most supermarkets at the moment are a little soupy to spend time in. So definitely would urge the process of regular cleansing. But the thing I want to focus in on most is this Orcus. Now, Orcus is something that we've talked about before. And for me, it's super interesting because it's pretty much bang conjunct my descendant in Virgo, my Pisces ascendant being at 14 degrees. And so this is an interesting kind of moment for me, because a lot of the work that I've been doing with my clients is showing me at the energetic level is the culmination of karma in many, many different ways. Soul agreements that have been taken on between family members, but also what I've seen a lot of is the need to release old curses and hexes. Now, this might sound a little woo-woo or far out for some of our listeners. I'm probably not for people who listen to our show regularly, but the next plant in motion we're going to be working with is nettle. And when this plant came up in the last few weeks for myself and Bella, we were wondering why nettle. Well, nettle's a great fortifying plant, so that's centered in oneself. This is a plant that has a long tradition of meditation, in particularly in the story of Milarepa that I've talked about before, the ascended Tibetan master who spent 20 years meditating in cave, only drinking nettle tea. So he would have had, I'm sure, a very profound communication with that being. But nettle is also known in folklore, witchcraft, etc., as being a plant that can break hexes and curses. And so this is actually the plant that I work with when I'm doing healings on people for this process. But I think it's really interesting that Orcus really, to me, in many ways, is about those kinds of contracts. And we can say that, okay, a curse is not necessarily a nice contract, but it's still actually an energetic contract that's serving some sort of purpose for both of the individuals involved, or sometimes maybe there's more individuals. And in this moment, what I'm seeing as we've emerged from Imbolc, a few weeks ago on February the 1st, and that whole week of those energies, is that now we're coming to the place where all of these old timeline contracts need to be concluded, because we cannot take them forwards, because there's somehow still an anchor, using the boat analogy, into the old paradigm. And unless we bring that anchor up and put it on the boat can't go anywhere. We're still kind of getting pulled back. Oh my God, somebody forgot to pull up the anchor. We need to have a look and see why it's not working.
And seaweed and rocks.
Exactly, barnacles, and maybe it's got stuck next to a log that we couldn't see underneath the water or whatever. We can go on with the analogy. But I think that this is a really important point, because a lot of our community, and particularly those who are more psychic, are now perceiving these energies in their fields. And maybe they were there before, maybe somehow they've got activated working with plants like dandelion, doing soul retrievals in other timelines, means that we change things. When we do a healing in the past, i.e. like a soul retrieval, the energy of that comes forward. So then the whole timeline changes, and what could have been a traumatic timeline for us as individuals suddenly maybe isn't. And there's an actual knock-on effect that comes through into this present moment. So again, dandelion, he's always showing us that there is no past, present, and future. It's all happening simultaneously. But if we haven't concluded the energetic contracts from those other time spaces, then they're going to be coming up for us right now. And I think that that's why Orcus is really here on this full moon in Virgo. Coming off the back of a new moon in Pisces, maybe it's also what contracts do we have with the collective? Why am I here right now? What am I meant to be doing right now? Do I have a role working with the collective? Or do I need to be, first of all, concentrating on myself? I can't help the collective until I've helped myself. So I feel many of these things are being brought into the illumination of this full moon in Virgo. So what do you think, Kelley?
I remember a fairy tale from years ago, and it was about 7 princes who had a sister. And I don't remember why, but these princes had a curse put upon them, and they were turned into swans. And the only way that curse could be broken was if their sister would knit them sweaters out of nettle. And while she was doing that, she couldn't speak. So she got right on it. And nettles are very sharp and they sting you. And that's one reason I think I remember this story, like, wow, is she a heroine? But so she was doing this, and this king fell in love with her. And, against all advice, he married her, and she's knitting away, but she can't speak. So the people start saying, she's a witch, and so then she's going to be, burned on the stake or something. I don't remember how they were going to like kill her, but she's knitting and knitting and knitting all the way to the end. And because she's almost finished the last sweater, she just has the sleeve to go. And so they're just about to put her on the fire or whatever. And these swans come flying in and land, and they save her, and they get their sweaters put on, and just one brother has a wing still there because the sleeve was never done. So
I love that story. I mean, it's full of so much plant medicine allegory, I mean, weaving the threads with nettle. I mean, nettle, of course, is something that we know we can make clothes out of, but from an energetic, magical point of view, the weaving of any threads is always something of a magical nature. And I love the idea also that the swans arrive just in time. Never lose your faith in the plants. They will always take you to where you need to go. And I think that even in the final throes, we should never give up. Again, this is kind of yarrow and wormwood: discipline, focus, dandelion, trust, surrender. It's like, as long as you always trust in a higher force, you will get saved in the final moment before you end up on a stake somewhere. Hopefully not. But, I feel that this is a time when we're going to be really tested on our ability to have faith in ourselves, to have faith in our allies, our spiritual allies, trust in the higher dimensional beings to arrive when we need them to arrive. So many things. I think that's a really great story. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, swans have a lot of spiritual connotations.
That too,
so,
right?
Yeah, and the have faith is definitely a Pisces theme. So so there's Orcus. So let's do the work, says the moon. So then, going back, like, look at this, whole series here. So we've got, Mercury's going to move into alignment with the sun. The sun's going to move into alignment with Neptune. And then Mars squares that full moon. Look, squaring the moon, squaring the sun. Mars has a big role. Mars is active. It's still in Gemini. Ever since like the second half of August, and then it went retrograde at the end of October, and we had to pull in the reins, and then in the first or second week of January it finally went forward, but it's still in Gemini. I mean, this can drive you crazy. There can be so much information coming in,
Right.
There can be like just spontaneous outbursts of frustration, of anger, of like what is true, what do I believe? And especially with all this Pisces, it's really hard to know, because this is the stormy sea part. This is confusion, delusion, the Neptune, like, what do I think about this? This has got to be conspiracy theory. I can't believe it. That can't be true. And it's so worrying and paranoia. And it's just like a mess here. Right. So the monkey mind is all over the place. So, the having faith, and this is, again, we need to come back to this beautiful conjunction here in Aries, which is about the heart, healing the heart, bringing the heart intelligence in, so that we are guided from a richer, more, like loving source, rather than the mind that can get really freaked out and really turned around and full of conflicting voices. And, it makes it hard to sleep. So,
right. I mean, I don't know how it feels for you, but I feel like Mars has been in Gemini my whole life. It's been that long.
Way of life now. Yeah. Yeah, but, and I have it opposite my sun, opposite my Mercury, squaring my own Mars, squaring my Saturn. I mean, I've been spun around, a few times here. And so, but, I'm a Sagittarian, so I have to keep the direction in mind, the storyline, we'll have the moon in Sagittarius, as, about a week into it. So looking at my notes, so we'll finish this first and then get back to the main thing. So we have, first of all, on March 11th, 12th, we have Jupiter actually conjuncting Chiron, and it's going to be at 14 plus. Now, that's not the serpent, you know, with the man and woman. This is an Indian is sitting silently, deftly weaving a basket in the light of the setting sun. So what did you say about weaving before, Davyd? Yeah, so this is a weaving of a basket, which is, you know, an earth vessel, holds water. You know, these are often sacred vessels used for ceremony. So, you know, there's this beautiful weaving going on here in a very calm state. And, you know, Jupiter and Chiron don't conjunct very often. And I'd like to say, I think it's true for you, Davyd, and a lot of people born in 76, that you have Jupiter conjunct Chiron in Aries.
I have Jupiter at 28 degrees of Taurus, so my Chiron is in opposition to Mercury.
Sorry, it's earlier in 76, maybe a bit of 75. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So anyway, I remember reading once, Jupiter Chiron conjunction means you're on a mission. So I guess that weaving that basket, and it's not unlike weaving the sweaters with the nettle either. So this is a special conjunction. Guru.
A basket's like a container, right? So I feel like this Sabian symbol is about the concentration, and Indian silently weaving is very, very focused before the light disappears. It's like, I need to get my container set whilst there's still light here. Otherwise, if I don't have my container set, maybe things are going to get a little tricky in the dark, so to speak. And we can understand that from many, many different ways. And there was something I was just going to say there about carry on, Kelley, please.
Okay. Well, at the same time, and I don't have this in here either, but Venus is going to move into a conjunction with Eris. You know, now Eris has her own thing, but you know, sometimes she just has to like bring stuff out so it's addressed. And also then Venus will be moving into a square with Pluto on March 16th. So that's also very potent. And I think, you know, so this is Venus on Eris, social unrest, things have to come out. We have to deal with this. Venus squaring Pluto. So I think this is part of the global financial situation. I think this is some pretty definitive action going on here. And it's again, you know, just leading up to this whole rather chaotic feeling week of the 14th to the 20th, leading right up to equinox and the next new moon. So we're going to, you know, again, have, you know, the sun and Neptune conjunction. Mars is squaring that. Mercury gets in there, squaring that. There's just this, you know, kind of, you know, radical, really choppy seas moment. So, you know, this is just keep your calm, keep weaving that basket, you know, set your priorities, do what you need to do, keep your emotional tone really centered, full of light, you know, and be in nature, ground your body, feed yourself well. Yeah, one of my mind-blowing moments this week was being introduced to like blue spirulina. I've never seen blue spirulina. It's like bright blue. It was like, I couldn't even believe it, but I was eating it.
What is that? Is it another form of spirulina, or is it a different plant altogether?
No, it's spirulina.
Wow.
And I you know, I don't know. Look it up. It's just one of my like Aries flash moments of like, wow, this can really be. And that might be part of what we're experiencing, especially with the Jupiter that can have to do with our belief systems. I heard somebody say last night, a belief is just a thought we think over and over again. So
basically, right? You know, and just on the point of the blue spirulina, I think that this is a really interesting thought because, you know, how to say, I feel like many, there are going to be many new plant beings that are going to suddenly emerge into our awareness. And maybe they were always there. Maybe we didn't know about their gifts, or maybe they're brand new plants that have been beamed in.
Yes, I think new plants. Yes.
Right.
I think the new earth is going to come up with all kinds of stuff. So, you know, that this is part of the Chiron Jupiter conjunction, is our belief systems being like blown out of the box, you know, and that is like, I can't believe it. And a lot of people are probably going to have those moments. And I wouldn't have thought I would, but hey, you know, I shouldn't say that, you know. Of course, I'm a self-righteous Sagittarius, and, you know, what I believe is true. So,
and look, at the end of the day, I think truth is a very, very personal, subjective perspective. And, you know, I feel like as we move into New Earth, what is truth is probably going to be a question that we're all going to ask ourselves a lot more. You know, as we understand from the movies that there are now actors who are saying that they have clones of themselves. There are politicians that have body doubles of themselves. So we're going to start to ask ourselves exactly, who are these people? Are they a robot? Are they real? Are they human? Can we trust them? Is there more than one of them? So even simple things that we thought could be an undeniable truth as to, oh, I know this person, suddenly could become, actually, who is this person? And who am I? Am I a robot? Jesus, have I been downloaded from somewhere? You know, am I a cloud somewhere in the sky that I'm downloading my own consciousness from into this spacesuit? Who knows? These are all existential questions that I feel that all form part of our own individual truths. And maybe what is true for you is true for me, maybe not. Doesn't matter. It's still subjectively my truth.
Yeah.
So
and we're going to kind of wash off all of the masking and the superficiality, and like let all of that dissolve, and there's that clarification of self coming to your center and your integrity and your soul essence, you know. So a lot of this is going in that direction, as some things are just melting away, and like in these waves of fluid light coming in, and the waters just washing away. And you know, the bridge is already burned behind us. Some people might not yet know that, but, you know, yeah. So this is, I think, just extraordinary energy. And, you know, it leads to Mercury going into Aries on the 19th, Sun going into Aries on the 20th, the new moon going in at 0+ Aries, I do believe, on the 21st. And we're back to the woman rising from the sea. And we have Saturn going into Pisces on this full moon. So, you know, on the full moon, look at that, 2959 Aquarius. That edge again, like we had Venus on the edge on the new moon. I mean, this is like just amazing. These things we see, you know, the choreography is so exquisite. Right. And so here we go, like right off, you know, the full moon, Saturn is changing sign, and it will be in Pisces for the next 2.5 years. When it goes retrograde later this year, it's only going to go back to zero Pisces. So it's not going to cross the line. So we're in this flow, and we need a solid boat that's not leaking. You know, we need a surfboard, you know, a paddleboard, whatever you've got to kind of, you know, ride in, you know, which is basically your body. So this is more about really, you know, keep getting your body clear, no leaky energy, you know, no drains, you know, dripping. No, this is, you know, really getting your body as clean and clear and natural as possible. Of course, this means getting the best quality water that you can. You know, we know for years fluoride's been going in water, but who knows what else with all kinds of drugs, you know, and groundwater and, you know, chemicals and whatever else. So this is really about, you know, paying attention, you know, to the water. And also about, you know, what we were saying before is like, How do you contain the water? There's the basket again. How do you, kind of guide the water so it doesn't flood all over the place and so you don't get too crazy? Because with Neptune, people, you can go crazy. You just like, confusion, illusion, delusion are three of my keywords on the negative side of Neptune. And there it is in Pisces. And Pisces can get like that too. It can be so ungrounded, so in fantasy land, so drug ridden. And, drugs are such a problem. And Saturn's going, we've got to clean this up. You can't keep going on like this. And that's literal, so
Right.
yeah. And I'm prepared to do a long talk on Saturn and Pisces right now, but it's coming.
For sure, it's coming, right? And, just something you said just sparked a smile with me is hashtag I am my own cosmic canoe, right? And this is my cosmic canoe. So I need to look after it.
Yeah.
If I'm going to traverse my multidimensional self, I need to make sure that the boat that I'm inhabiting to do that is grounded and watertight. I think watertight is important, which again is where AUKUS comes in. If we haven't resolved the karmic contracts of the past, we're not watertight. We're still going to have a leak somewhere that could come back and bite us on the arse. It could be in the form of a curse, a hex, some unresolved paperwork, some unresolved situations, whatever it might be. Is going to come up for us and we're going to have to deal with it. And I feel like as Saturn enters into Pisces, it's going to give us a more structured container, the basket, so to speak, that the Indian guy's weaving, to be able to hold the more watery stuff that's going to come up for everybody. We need to have our own basket, our own container, our own coracle to at least float somewhat on these watery next 2.5 years. So maybe let's take the chart down and come to the wrap up for today's show, Kelley, and you can also share the image, I think, that really nicely goes with this that you had.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, so talk us through this little piece, Kelley, as we wrap up.
Sue Blake, an Australian artist, loves doing these sorts of, she's really good at mermaids. But this is her Pisces moon drawing, and she's allowing me to share it. And I just think it's so beautiful and so evocative. We even see the stars, in the shape that they are in the Pisces constellation, the knot tying together the two fish, one over here and one over here. So they aren't separated. They're tied together. And, the Jupiter and Neptune being the two rulers of Pisces. So anyway, just, images are so much richer than words in so many ways.
Right. Yeah. Thank you for sharing it. That's really beautiful. And we're both big fans of mythology and storytelling. And I know that we love to do our shows in a kind of a storytelling way and to try and evoke those images for people through the words that we use and even the images that we use. And perhaps as we wrap up for today's show, Kelley, what would be your overall view of the next 3 to 4 weeks? And how would you advise people to try and navigate these next few weeks?
Make sure your boat is seaworthy.
Right.
and get as much grounding as you can before you're on the boat. And, keep that light of guidance inside and trust yourself. And, disengage when you get too triggered or confused or, oh my God, what do I believe about this? And, don't get into that mental loop, just come back and, really keep your own flame burning through all of this. That's you keep yourself as clear and positive minded and heart centered as possible. That's I think what we're here to do, that, we need to be, kind of helping with the light, hold the light. Yeah.
Wow, thank you. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that the analogy of the boat is really important, to stay centered in one's boat, to make sure the boat is, of course, seaworthy, but also to make sure that you've got provisions, to see everything with a sense of excitement as an adventure, to be a pioneer. I feel since February the 1st, we're all now into a space that none of us have ever been in before. And as such, we can have some visions of the future, how things may play out, but there are so many timelines. And, you know, I talked to Zach about this, and he said, look, there are many, many different timelines. And of course, the overall trajectory is going to be the same because the astrology sort of says that. But how we get to that place, especially with Uranus still very much in the mix, is anybody's guess. And, you know, there could be lots of unexpected moments. For even those of us who think we're the most informed or the most awake, still, I feel like Uranus is going to go, well, you didn't see that one coming, did you? You know, and with that Mars squaring Neptune, you know, Mars in Gemini and Neptune in Pisces, there is a lot of illusion. There is going to be a lot of breaking down of illusion, maybe even puncturing of belief systems. It's like, oh my gosh, I really, really believed that my whole life, and now that's not true. That's going to be how to say, disorientating.
Yes.
Some people, if they're both
like in the fog, we're going to be in the fog, and we're just going to have to, like, you know, kind of keep navigating from our hearts, and and also the upliftment of the spiritual energy. You know, that may be, you know, the grace and the love and the guidance, and really tuning into that.
Exactly. And that Vesta energy, the inner flame, when the fog does descend on our little boat and we can't see what's around us, maybe we need to really shine forth that inner flame so that we can at least navigate our own way through the fog until hopefully the fog dissolves and we can see dry land again, which I really feel that final little sea voyage through the mistiness, the fog, is what we are going to go through until all of those planets start to enter Aries, right? You know, and we emerge from the water like the seal lady. So I think all of these analogies are really, really good ways of helping us all to sort of feel into how these energies could work, how they could play out in the world around us, but also how do we navigate our own little coracle boat through the choppy waters. And for sure, you know, everything right now requires a certain level of discernment, you know, because there's a lot of interesting stuff going on, lots of interesting things in the sky flying around. We don't know who they are, where they came from, what the hell is any of it actually about, and who are the good guys, who are the bad guys, is still an ongoing question, and actually probably one that we should rise above and just say, it's just a show. It's just a show.
Rise above. You know, that's it. You know, it's like rise above it, you know, like it's like the plane above the clouds, you know, down there, you know, there's fog, you can't see anything, but up here, what do you call it? The eagle's perch? You know, and Manwe works with the eagles. Manwe gets messages from the eagles.
Right. And of course, being so Scorpionic, the eagle's perch is the place that I'm hoping to reside in more often. And having our head above the clouds, I think that's a great analogy. And living up here in the mountains, sometimes we are above the clouds. And the sense that gives the third eye, and particularly the crown chakra, as a sensation or in a physical realm is, you know, anyone who's been up to Machu Picchu, maybe in the mountains of Peru and been above the cloud level, but with that magical city somehow floating above the clouds. I mean, the world is full of magic, and you know, we can experience it every day if we just allow ourselves to be present. Right?
Yeah, appreciating those little things that Virgo loves to pay attention to. Yeah,
right, exactly. Pay attention to the details with that Virgo energy, and with our good friend Dandelion, always reminding us the best place to be, because it's the only place to be, is right here, right now, because it's always perfect. So what more can you ask for? So on that beautiful note, Kelley, please again just share with our audience who maybe haven't heard you for the first time, what is your website and what can you offer them? Okay,
well, my website is w.helia, Helia, standing for the feminine sun energy, heliastar.com. And, you know, I have my, I'm doing a monthly newsletter that coordinates with our Moons and Mythos very well. And that's going to be up in a few days, and you can, you know, just sign up to get it on email if you like. And that's a, you know, a written version. So it comes up with different things, you know, sometimes. And then I love the coordination that we do here. And I have a lot of writings on there, and I offer consultations, and I just enjoy, I so enjoy, doing astrology with people and, star talk and cosmic conversations.
Cosmic conversations, exactly. I have the sneak preview of the newsletter here, so I can vouch for its usefulness. And I think actually, if you take the newsletter and listen to the show, it's a great way of making annotated notes. I find that for me, a lot of the chats I do with you and other astrologers, it's like I need a little kind of board to write notes down, and then the picture starts to emerge. And I do this actually every month with my own astrology to try and map my way through the month and say, well, maybe this is a good day for this, maybe don't do this day. And the newsletter is great. Definitely recommend that, and definitely recommend Kelley's books on Black Moon Lilith, who's one of our favorite characters that we like to bring into our shows. Not so featured today, but definitely I'm sure she'll be back in the mix again very soon. So thank you again, Kelley, for your time. I absolutely love doing these shows with you. I always learn so much. Hopefully our audience has too. And please do check out Kelley's website. Maybe get yourself a reading, because actually right now having a reading of your astrology is like having the map of where your boat is going to go, and maybe just having a few little details.
Where to plug in the leaks too sometimes, or how to. Yeah.
Exactly. Plugging the leaks also is important, so we don't get out to sea and find that we've got a big hole in our boat, which we didn't notice. So with all of those very watery sea shanty analogies that we've had today, a very big thank you to everyone for listening. A big thank you to Kelley again. And hopefully we will see you again for next month's Moons and Mythos, or if not, maybe you might want to join us over at quantumplанthealing.com, where we're going to be working with the wonderful nettle plant, and more about that on other shows soon. So thank you, everybody. Take care, and make sure that your boat's ready to go. See you soon. Bye-bye.